It would force the White House to use more confrontational scenarios vis-a-vis Moscow that as a whole suits Clinton's line of conduct. Do you hear how insane this is? Like, you're going to instigate a war with a nuclear power just so you can win an election? Smith's July 27th email, Julianne's, to her think tank colleagues about Trump, Russia, and NATO the day after candidate Clinton allegedly approved the plan certainly lends at least some credence that such a plan existed. Oof, of course it did. John Durham. In fact, Baker informed the office that the following defensive briefing of Lynch, he began to have concerns about Lynch's bias due to her curious reaction to the information and her interaction with Bill Clinton. Ugh, gross. The Durham Report Annex, now declassified. Chuck Grassley and President Trump releasing this for us to review. It is the Durham Annex, declassified, was hidden from public eyes for quite some time. Would have been useful to know what the Democrats were up to when they knew about it. So here is what this says. Here is a report on matters related to intelligence activities and investigations out of the 2016 election. This is the classified appendix from John Durham. Says using this stuff, be careful, right? FISA, subject to FISA disclosure, standard disclaimer box. Got it. This classified appendix forms part of the bigger report on matters arising out of the 2016 election. So it's classified of the Durham report. Got it. And it provides further information about matters covered in 3 sections of the report. One is about the investigative referral of a possible Clinton campaign plan that Hillary set up. Another section, which is about the threat of foreign election influence by foreign governments, and the Page FISA section. Beginning in or about 2014, before Trump has even announced, maybe even has a sparkle in his eye, and continuing through at least in or about 2016, individuals that were affiliated with the Russian intelligence services, they hacked our servers, our tubes. We look like we have a label on the report happening here. So this was classified by Durham, derived from somebody redacted, and declassify V on some other redacted date. So he writes in the footnote, the OSC has carefully coordinated the classification review of this unclassified report and this document with the redacted. Based on that coordination, the redacted concurs with these classifications. Okay, so somebody else said you can redact these things or classify the document accordingly, like 2 people turning their keys. Now, they gained unlawful access, the Russians, to emails of numerous U.S. public and private entities, including government agencies, nonprofits, and think tanks based in the United States. The Russian hackers hacked the tubes. Among the nonprofit organizations hacked by the Russian government actors was the Soros Foundation. At the time, it was called the Open Society Foundations because Soros's name is garbage. Now, redacted. From redacted date through this date, so-and-so received from a blank source, referred herein as T1, like out of Terminator or something, and shared with the FBI intelligence consisting of redacted footnote 3, which we get no information from. We identify the information provided by the T1 as sensitive intelligence. Now, the sensitive intelligence included emails, redacted, showing how somebody was responsible, probably, for the hacking of US-based communications. And number 2, redacted reports analyzing the hacked US materials. And 3, what appears or purports to be the original hacked emails of US persons or portions of those emails for number 5, right? So we're going to get to some emails and we're going to have questions about the emails, right? You're always asking about authenticity. They appear or they purport to be original hacked emails or they're portions of those emails. 2 of the apparently hacked emails appear to have originated from the Open Society Foundations. The purported author of these emails was Leonard Bernardo, who was the regional director for Eurasia to the Open Society Foundations, footnote 6, referencing the other documents. Now, in that capacity, Bernardo oversaw efforts relating to Russia and the former Soviet republics, among other countries. And so beginning in this date, 2016, the FBI field office received information from T1, and that information was relating to the 2016 election, including this person's reports written by these people. Now, these reports reference purported communications of Bernardo, the George Soros Open Society dude. In particular, in this date, in this location in 2016, T1, the source, provided the US government with 2-something memorandum that described confidential conversations that someone had between then Democratic National Committee Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz and 2 individuals at the Open Society Foundations referred to in the memo as the Soros Foundation. Now, this is John Durham in his appendix writing. Bernardo and Jeffrey Goldstein, who according to public sources was senior policy advisor for Eurasia at the Open Society Foundations, were in this communication. The January date 2016 memo, which was in Russian, something like this. Okay, so Russian, maybe like Cyrillic. It was was their, the font, the language that they write in. I don't know. It was in Russian, so maybe it's Russian intelligence. The January memo got it from the Russia guy, so T1 might be, interfacing with the Russians. Let's see. Here's what they provide to us. On January 12th of this year, during a confidential discussion with Goldstein, a representative of the Soros Foundation on Eurasia, Democratic National Committee chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, characterized the situation in her party in light of the growing scandal around Hillary Clinton as follows. Debbie said, according to probably Russian intelligence that was passed on through T1, says information released to the media in the last few days about the FBI investigating possible corruption relating to the Department of State under the leadership of Clinton, preferential treatment of donors of the Clinton Foundation caused a significant negative reaction inside the party. Now, at the same time, the leadership of the Democratic Party had known about the information since June 2015. But according to Wasserman Schultz, the DNC chair at the time, the FBI so far does not have persuasive evidence against Hillary Clinton because of the timely deletion of relevant data from mail servers. All of her criminality that she conducted on her email servers, which is why she got those email servers created for her so she could do that without public scrutiny, were deleted. How convenient is that? Obama has no intention, this is the memo, to darken the final part of his presidency and his legacy by the scandal surrounding the main contender from the Democratic Party. So to solve the problem, the president puts pressure on James Comey through Attorney General Lynch, however, so far without concrete results. Well, it's because Loretta Lynch hadn't met with Bill Clinton yet. Comey gravitates towards Republicans and apparently intends to prolong the investigation so that the scandal would keep going until the presidential election to jeopardize the chances of the Democratic Party to win the presidential race. The other March memo, which again was in Russian, something came from somebody and somebody validated whatever, stated in relevant part the following. During confidential contacts on March 5th with Leonard Bernardo and the Soros Fund, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the chairman of the DNC, she characterized, so they must have like her bugged, man. So the Russians got Leonard and Debbie bugged. They're listening to the conversations. Chairperson, she characterized the developments in the pre-election campaign of the Hillary Clinton in the following way. And somebody's typing this report up to Pooty. In relation to the consensus reached among the Democratic Party leadership regarding the candidacy of Hillary, Obama sanctioned the use of all administrative levers. Okay, so they're listening to Debbie. She's like, just chill out, Soros people. You guys aren't going to be in trouble. Don't worry. None of your criminality, none of your scams that you were conducting with Hillary and the Soros and Clinton foundations, it's all deleted. Just forget about it. We're running things here, okay? Just chill out. Keep your donos coming. We're going to win. And that Obama is going to facilitate it, okay? He's going to remove possibly negative effects from the FBI investigation of cases related to Clinton Foundation and the email correspondence with the State Department. And so based upon information from Wasserman Schultz, somebody in Russian is writing this, the FBI does not possess any kind of direct evidence against Clinton because of their timely deletion from the email servers. The political director of the Hillary Clinton staff, called Amanda Renteria, regularly receives information from Attorney General Loretta Lynch, who is Obama's AG, feeding the Hillary campaign information that she is not going to be prosecuted for her crimes on the plans and the intentions of the FBI. It's like, no wonder she wasn't worried. Active work is being done, questioning potential witnesses who are mostly computer specialists in the Clinton private circle. So like, they're going to be fine. They're like in her private circle. No one's going to talk, so just chill out. They represent the only tools which may be used in this matter, okay? Therefore, the threat is minimal. Hillary's going to be fine. We'll cover it up for her. The media will be complicit. The DNC predicts a certain Clinton victory in the current presidential campaign. We saw that, man. It was like election night. Like New York Times had it 92%. We watched all those speedometers go. They had a rough night. It was amazing. The impressive results of Donald Trump are dividing the Republican Party elite, which finds itself in near panic conditions. Man, we had panicans even back then, freaking out about this. Trump won. Two-pronged Democratic attack factor, discrediting Trump through debates and propaganda activities based upon his weak points, such as his uncontrollable temperament, questionable incidents of business dealings, and the absence of diplomatic skills, lack of political experience. So among other things, the Clinton staff, with support from special services, is preparing, writing in Russian, scandalous revelations of business relations between Trump and the Russian mafia. Currently, they're studying the connections with Aras Aglarov, the owner of a company called the Crocus Group, Timur Sapir, a deceased businessman of Russian heritage, suspected to have ties to the Italian mafia, and Tevfik Arif, the owner of the Bayrock Group, suspected of being involved in prostitution and human trafficking from the former USR. Okay, so they're just like finding people, fishing for some people. I don't know. Now, as it continues, with regard regard to the discussion in the last paragraph of this memo of, quote, scandalous revelations that the Clinton staff was preparing with support from, quote, special services, the words that FBI linguists translated as special services are Russian words that one analyst believed at the time referred to the FBI and the CIA, okay? Or more broadly, the intelligence and law enforcement communities. Now, another analyst caveating it, he's like, well, it may not be the CIA, right? He's like, it could be translated. Perhaps the phrase special services, the Russians had this intelligence, in this context could refer to Trump dossier author Christopher Steele. Could be Christopher Steele, right? He's special services. He's Fusion GPS, got hired from Mark Alive. Maybe it's him. According to media reports, Steele's own testimony in UK legal proceedings, he also formerly worked at MI6. In addition, the office has determined at the time of this memo that Glenn Simpson's firm, you remember him, Fusion GPS, was in fact preparing open source opposition research about Trump's purported ties to the Russian oligarchs, redacted. And so Fusion GPS, if you remember, was founded by Glenn Simpson and some other dude, I believe. And Glenn Simpson was hired by who? Mark Elias. And we remember Mark Elias worked for who? Perkins Coie. And Perkins Coie was hired by who? That's right, Hillary. Okay, so we just trace it all the way back from Hillary all the way down to Fusion, and they were just making crap up. They couldn't find it, as we're going to find out. So on March 31st, FBI personnel, including Deputy Director Andy McCabe, Deputy General Counsel Anderson, Assistant Director James Traynor, Chief of Staff James Rybicki, they shared the intelligence information with Deputy Attorney General David Margolis, the highest-ranking career officer in the department. The FBI briefed him on the specifics of the, quote, sensitive intelligence and informed him that the FBI assessed the information to likely be, quote, not credible. Oh, man. The FBI's assessment, according to McCabe and later memorialized by Anderson in a memo, was based on 4 factors. They said, well, you know, this report, like these memos, they were bad about Hillary, so we have to get rid of them. Let's find 4 reasons why they did. Well, there's multiple levels of hearsay, which is wild because wasn't that what the Christopher Steele dossier was? Like 50 levels of he said, she said nonsense. Second, someone involved in the communication or in passing along the communication at the think tank may have exaggerated it, just like when Christopher Steele said that Trump got peed on. They're like, actually, that sounds more reasonable than Hillary is trying to frame Trump. Third, the person who redacted the drafted document reports may have engaged in exaggeration as well. So again, all of this is calling for speculation. And fourth, the reports may be unreliable because of translation errors. Yeah, but they could be reliable because both of your guys, one of them for sure says it's CIA, it's FBI. The other guy says it's Hillary. So either way, that's bad. Whether it's Hillary's people doing it with Michael Sussman and Mark Elias, or whether it's the Russians or anyone else, they should find that out and pass that up the chain of command. But they didn't. After that meeting, the FBI, redacted, sought any additional related information from T1. T1 had no responsive information. So at this time, the FBI considered taking a number of covert investigative steps to determine, among other things, whether the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch for Obama, had in fact communicated with Hillary's Amanda, the political director of the Hillary campaign staff. Can you go find that out? Because that's a pretty big deal if that's true. Now, the FBI ultimately decided not to take those steps. Comey told the Office of the Inspector General that the FBI did not pursue these steps because the information in the reports was just not credible, says Comey. In this regard, Tricia Anderson told the investigators that Comey had said that the assertion that the AG was pressuring him in connection with the exam gave him doubts. He says, oh no, I never felt pressured. So if it says that she was pressuring me, I've never felt that. So because that's invalid, the rest of the document's invalid. He also understood that Margolis's view was that pursuing these steps would take us down a path where you're investigating the AG of the United States, which they didn't care. They'd rather just frame the incoming president, duly elected by the American people, rather than investigate a criminal who was trying to enact a theft of the election. They were trying to steal the election by framing Trump with made-up nonsense and exonerating Hillary as they controlled all the levers of power. That Margolis thought you ought to have more of a reason to go forward with it than what you have. Now, they got some additional information. After receiving the initial intelligence in this date in 2016, somebody here, the FBI subsequently received additional intelligence from T1. In particular, it's now late July 2016. The election is in November. We got months to go. So-and-so received a redacted report that summarized the something and also discussed redacted certain hacked emails allegedly sent by Leonard Bernardo of the Open Society Foundation. Redacted. Now, redacted memorandum stated that Clinton approved a plan proposed by one of her foreign policy advisors called Julianne Smith. Oh, Julianne, you're busted. To smear Donald Trump by magnifying the scandal tied to the intrusion by the Russian Special Services Services, saying that it benefits the Republicans. The translated draft memo stated in relevant part, this could be another intelligence product from the Russians, and they're trying to pass it up to their people, and somebody's intercepting that. I've heard the Dutch, maybe the Europeans, who knows. According to data from the election campaign headquarters of Hillary Clinton obtained via the U.S. Soros Foundation, they're writing in their memo, again translated, says on July 26, 2016, Hillary Clinton approved a plan of her policy advisor called Julianne Smith from the T's, NAB. TN is an unknown acronym, to smear Donald Trump by magnifying the scandal tied to the intrusion by Russian special services in the pre-election process to benefit Trump. As envisioned by Smith, Julianne, raising the theme of, quote, Putin's support for Trump to the level of the Olympics scandal would divert the constituents' attention from the investigation of Clinton's compromised electronic correspondence. Exactly. She deleted a bunch of emails, so she didn't go to federal prison, and she needed something else to talk about because that was devastating to her election prospects. In addition, by subsequently steering public opinion toward the notion that it needs to equate Putin's efforts to influence political process via cyberspace to acts against a crucially important infrastructure, like it resembles a national power supply network. It would force the White House to use more confrontational scenarios vis-a-vis Moscow that, as a whole, suits Clinton's line of conduct. Do you hear how insane this is? Like, you're going to instigate a war with a nuclear power just so you can win an election? A relatively sluggish reaction by the administration to the events surrounding the DNC that led to the resignation of Debbie provoked exasperation within the PC. Maybe it's like a political convention, and the entire deep state, which may also be used by Clinton to reinforce her position among security service agents. The Russian memo says Clinton supporters in the FBI lack conclusive, irrefutable evidence of the Russians Federation involvement in the scandal tied to the theft of the DNC's correspondence, right? So they don't even know the Russians did that. In the meantime, during the launched investigation, there's been a multitude of circumstantial evidence that the alias of Guccifer 2.0, we remember, the name of the hacker who accepted responsibility for the incident, was in fact used to cover up a special unit of the GRU, the Russian Defense Intelligence Agency, one special unit of the Russian ministry's general staff. So Guccifer maybe was the Russians. Now, during the first stage of the campaign, due to a lack of direct evidence, it was decided to disseminate the necessary information through the FBI-affiliated attic-based technical structures that are involved in cybersecurity, in particular the CrowdStrike and Threat Connect companies, from where the information would then be disseminated through leading U.S. publications. So you see the fake pipeline. FBI-affiliated technical structures, which are these companies. So FBI, they can't do their own dirty work, so they got these other companies, CrowdStrike and Threat Connect. They do it. Then from that, it goes to the U.S. publications. They say, oh, we're CrowdStrike. We're a reputable company. We're investigating all these things. And Washington Post says they found evidence of Russia collusion. In addition, it is presumed in the FBI that in the future, any clumsy propaganda campaign by the GRU, the Russians, is bound to lead to the emergence of more reliable indications of Moscow's involvement, which would imminently intensify the U.S. confrontational tendencies towards the Russians. Now, bunch of stuff redacted here. Redacted memo contains, all redacted, a reference to the Atlantic Council, a think tank based in Washington, D.C. Another redacted is the Carnegie Endowment. According to an FBI analyst interviewed by The Office, redacted, the hacked institution was the source of U.S. communications. And the above referenced memo also included English text of a document that won something. As discussed above, the document contained a purported email from Bernardo that appears to have been partially based. Notably, their blank of the document which contained the following text. There was a something of the document which contained the following text. From Leonard Bernardo, sent July 25, 2016. Leonard Bernardo is the Open Society Foundation senior individual who is sending this over, presumably, to Debbie. Says, hi, the media analysis on the DNC hacking appears solid. Perfect, they're blaming the Russians. This is an important story because it would be the first time that we know of that a state deliberately uses infiltration and publication of data to interfere in the US election. Now, at the same time, politicization is on the table. Leonard says, I have been a bit surprised that nobody has mentioned this 18-month-long story yet in their analysis and makes explicit reference to US elections at the end. Julie, maybe Juliana, says it will be a long-term affair to demonize Putin and Trump. Now it is good for post-convention bounce. Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire. You see how disgusting these maniacs are? Outcome is far from clear, as Americans are more keen on their own woes, and Hillary is hardly good-looking as far as credibility is concerned. Anyway, things are gas ghastly for U.S.-Russian relations, says Lenny. Now, someone also received from T1 a slightly different version of this email. Okay, so other people are like writing this stuff down. This version includes the statement that later the FBI will put more oil into the fire and contains an added sentence. So a little bit different. It says here, from Leonard, hi, the media analysis appears solid, important story because it'll be the first time that we know of. At the same time, politicization is on the table. I've been a bit surprised nobody's talking about this. Julie says it will be a long-term affair. Now it's good for post-convention bounce. Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire to frame Trump. Outcome is far from clear. Anyway, it should last as long as the Olympics accusations. And things are ghastly for U.S.-Russian relations. So maybe like the Olympic doping scandal, which, went on for a long time, led to investigations, all sorts of things. So redacted also obtained from the sensitive intelligence collection, something, 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 and an email dated the following day. The FBI's translation of this email is as follows. Great! A whole bunch of material appeared in the press today regarding this subject. It appears that the noose around Guccifer's Russian background is tightening. I suggest doing something about a task from someone. I don't know, some dark forces, like the FBI, for instance. Yeah, it's a good one. It's the first one I think of. Or better yet, Clinton sympathizers in the intelligence community, the Pentagon, the deep state, or somewhere else, right? If the media is writing about it, you blame Trump, send it to the intelligence agencies, have them mop it up and regurgitate it. Then you have coming from both angles about American websites deploying a campaign to demonize Russia's intelligence, acting in accordance by the orders of Putin to undermine the forces of good in the elections in the interest of Trump, who is basically an agent of influence, they write. Using inept Russian operatives, there is such information, and their general inclination to adventurism and idiocy, a number of crucial technical indications pointing to Russia were exposed and so on. Will that be okay? Question. Another something email, something, dated July 27, 2016, appears to discuss making something, quote, to illuminate how Clinton is attempting to vilify Moscow and how she's trying to discredit Putin and Trump. So who's sending these and where are they going? We don't really know. But this email from the following English text in a document, which appears to be another email from Bernardo, bears a date of July 27. From Leonard Bernardo, July 27, 2016. Hi, HRC approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. One more time. Hillary Rodham Clinton approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. Indicter. That should distract people from her own missing email, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. The point is making the Russian play a U.S. domestic issue. Say something like a critical infrastructure threat for the election to feel menace, since both POTUS and VPOTUS have acknowledged, that's Obama and Biden, the fact that the intelligence community would speed up searching for evidence that is regrettably still unavailable. However, there seems to be signs of Russian penetration, GRU penetration, Cyrillic 2.0 VPN, Elite VPN, Felix Edmonovich. They appear hardly skilled, incompetent, bumbling idiots, as somebody called them. In the absence of direct evidence, CrowdStrike and Threat Connect will supply the media. The GRU will hopefully carry on to give more facts. The office interviewed numerous FBI personnel who were involved in Crossfire Hurricane to determine whether they could shed light about the reliability or unreliability of this Clinton campaign plan. Was she behind this? Certain FBI or CIA or NSA analysts and officers whom the office interviewed, who were well versed in the sensitive intelligence collection, stated their best assessment was that the Bernardo emails were likely authentic. Oh, so how come we didn't see that? John Durham? Multiple analysts noted that the Russians had in fact hacked Bernardo's emails. Yeah, the Russians did it. And someone else's, maybe Debbie Wasserman's and others. Some analysts also noted it was possible, however, that the Russians might have fabricated or they could have altered those emails. But some of these analysts also noted that the sensitive intelligence was lots of redactions there, which means it was validated by this source, and probably pretty good. Now, in addition, the office obtained records from a number of nonprofit organizations and think tanks that, as noted above, were the victims of hacks by Russian intelligence to determine the accuracy of these sensitive intelligence and whether it was a plan by Hillary. These included, among others, the Open Society Foundations, the Atlantic Council, the Carnegie Endowment, and these other think tanks. Now, notably, the office was unable to locate the records from the think tanks, any exact versions of the Bernardo emails obtained from T1. So who did he send that to? They checked a bunch of other companies, basically. The office did, however, identify certain emails attachments, and documents that contain language and references with the same or similar verbiage to the materials referenced above. For example, like the dude sounds the same. On July 25th, the same date as one of the emails purportedly from Bernardo. So Bernardo's just firing off emails, right? Like, oh, I got like an hour to bang out some of these emails. He's like firing up, boom. One goes over to you with this DNC operation. One goes over to you over here, fires this one off. Yeah, just election critical infrastructure. Just wreck everything. Hillary Clinton approved it. Send. And just bouncing them all out. Now, they didn't find the one about the Hillary plan, but they found others. And this one on July 25th, the same date as one of the other emails, Tim Maurer, a Carnegie Endowment cyber expert, replied to an email asking for an opinion on an article. The article was, "The hacks we can't see. All signs point to Russia being behind the DNC." Now, Maurer began by stating, "The author is very good, thoughtful." Maurer then wrote the following, which contains certain language that also appears verbatim in the email attributed to Bernardo of the same date. Yeah, his analysis is solid regarding the DNC story. I agree with Reed that this is an important story because it would be the first time that we know of that another state uses exfiltration in the publication. At the same time, I have been a bit surprised that nobody has mentioned this March story yet in their analysis. Now, in addition to this email, the think tank records also contained an email from Julianne Smith, the Clinton campaign advisor, where Smith circulated a draft public statement to certain think tank colleagues. In the email, which Julianne, sent the day after Clinton purportedly authorized the above plan, Smith urged her colleagues to sign the draft statement that criticized Trump for his comments about the NATO alliance and that Trump's public statements concerning NATO were too friendly towards Russia. In her cover email, Juliana from Hillary's team, she sent this out to a bunch of people. "Okay, we're writing to enlist your support for the attached public statement. Both of us are Hillary Clinton supporters and advisors, but hope that this statement could be signed by a bipartisan group. Trump's repeated denigration of our NATO alliance, his refusal to support our obligations to our European allies, and his kid-glove treatment of Putin make him one of the most reckless people ever." Now, during the same week, Clinton's campaign manager, Robbie Mook, stated in media interviews that the campaign believed that the Russians hacked the DNC and that Trump loves Russia. Now, as noted above, the office conducted multiple interviews related to the sensitive intelligence, including interviews of Leonard Bernardo, Tim Maurer, and Juliana Smith. When Bernard was shown redacted versions of the purported emails from the sensitive intelligence, Bernardo stated they didn't look familiar to him, so they talked to him, and that he would not have used certain terms. Well, I would never say oil into the fire. He also said, well, I don't even know who Julie is. Julie? Who's that? Bernardo stated to the best of his recollection, he did not draft the emails. I don't remember those. Bernardo stated, however, that the last sentence in the email, noting that things are ghastly for U.S.-Russian relations, he said, that does sound like something I would say. Now, in an interview with the office, Maurer likewise was shown the emails from Bernardo. Maurer stated that he did not write either email. I didn't write those, but he acknowledged, however, writing the above reference email identified in the Carnegie Endowment. He also acknowledged that portions of the language in the email obtained through the T1 collection, verified that, and purported to be from Bernardo were identical to language in Maurer's emails of the same date to his colleagues. Now, finally, the office interviewed Julianne Smith. Smith stated that she neither drafted nor recalled receiving either of those Bernardo emails. Nobody wants to claim it, obviously. Smith stated that she did not specifically remember proposing a plan to Clinton or any other campaign leadership to try to tie Trump to Putin to Russia. She did state, however, that it was possible that she proposed ideas on these topics to leadership, and they may have approved those ideas. I don't know. Now, Smith recalled conversations with others in campaign expressing their genuine concerns that the DNC hack was a threat and that Trump and his advisors were connected to Russia. Like, their people actually believed it. They got him good. Smith said it was also possible someone proposed an idea to distract attention away from Hillary, but I don't remember any specifics about that. But however, there was a certain proposal she had made to the Clinton campaign seeking to highlight issues about Trump and Russia. Now, in addition, the office interviewed Clinton herself and several members of the Clinton campaign using the sensitive intelligence materials declassified about this plan that was approved by Hillary. In reviewing the 16 declassified intelligence material, Hillary stated that it looked like Russian disinformation to me. John Podesta also stated that he had not seen the declassified materials before, characterized the information as ridiculous, and denied the campaign was involved in any plan. Podesta. Then Jake Sullivan, who went to Oxford, he came in, stated, oh, I've never seen that memo before. He had no reaction other than to say, that's ridiculous. Jake Sullivan. Although admitting that the campaign was broadly focused on Trump, Sullivan could not recall anyone talking about a plan to distract from Hillary, of course not, but could not conclusively rule out the possibility. Communications director also for Hillary, Jennifer Palmieri, she stated that she had never seen the memo before, found its contents to be ridiculous. They all got the same memo. They all sound like the same. Ridiculous, ridiculous, ridiculous. It's like Trump-Russia collusion. They just repeat the same talking points. All of you just go out and speak out, say the word ridiculous this repeatedly and could not recall anything like this related to the campaign. Palmieri stated Podesta, Sullivan, Mook, and herself were aware of a project involving ties between Trump and Russia conducted by a law firm, Perkins Coie, Mark Elias, but I don't think Clinton's aware of it, and I didn't receive any direction or instruction from her about it. Okay, so the lawyers did it, not us. Foreign Policy Advisor number 2 confirmed the campaign was focused on Trump and Russia, but that the focus was due to national security concerns and not designed to distract the public from Hillary. Foreign Policy Advisor 2 stated that she did not have a conversation with Clinton about a plan and don't remember anything about it. Now, the office's review of certain communications about Julianne Smith provided possible additional support, however, to the notion that the Clinton campaign was engaged in an effort or a plan in late July 16 to encourage scrutiny of Trump, and that the campaign might have wanted or expected the FBI to put more oil into the fire by commencing an investigation of the DNC hack. Here's how they know. For example, on July 5th, Foreign Policy Advisor 2 emailed campaign advisor Smith, Clinton campaign advisor 1, and others, and she wrote the following. All right, we're looking for ways to build on Franklin Foer's great and scary piece on Trump and Russia. So some journo has it and is like, that's a great idea. One thing I've heard from a few folks is that the Russia desk at State Department has been tracking and sounding an internal alarm about parallels between rhetoric and words and methods that Trump uses and Putin-supported right-wing candidates in Europe. So they say the same words, like they both love their countries, like they're nationalists. Oh no. I'm told it goes beyond just populist stuff. I'd love to get my hands on the details of what they're seeing. Can one of you help run this down? I imagine the INR or the intelligence community types might have some insight. Obviously, we need to be a bit careful here, but eager to get specifics or details. So what's going on inside the government? Okay. Clinton campaign asking for stuff inside the government and saying, we want you or the ICs to dig into this. Like, go. Foreign Policy Advisor 2 stated, well, I didn't talk to anybody about it. Okay. They told you to go ask, Clinton's campaign emailed you somebody about this. Did you do it? No, I didn't speak with anybody. Okay. The information she mentioned in this email, it came from another outside advisor anyways. So in addition, on July 25th, the same day as the purported email from Bernardo stating that Julie says it's going to be a long-term affair to demonize Putin, Smith, Julianne, had the following text message exchange with Foreign Policy Advisor 2. So Julie gets the permission from Hillary, Bernardo catches wind about it, and then Julianne sends another text to Foreign Policy Advisor 2, the same person who got the email to beef up the story from the Clinton campaign. Here's what she said in text messages. From Foreign Policy Advisor 2, somebody working in the government. Can you see if the special assistant to the president and National Security Council member will tell you if there's a formal FBI or investigation into the hack? So this is like Jake Sullivan's number 2, probably. Somebody who's helping, Jake, because he was Hillary's foreign policy advisor. Julianne Smith, second in command to Hillary, very close to that, says she won't say anything more to me. Sorry. She told me she went as far as she could. Okay. I'm pumping her for info, but I just can't get any. So I'm trying to find out, but I don't have anything for you. Now, another one. Okay. Do you have others who might? Can you go hit other people up for this? From Julianne, from Clinton. Well, has Clinton Advisor 1 tried her? Has somebody else from the team gone and tried to pump her for info? Go bring her some donuts or something. She'll love them. Curious if she would react differently to him. Oh, it's a him. Yeah, go send him over there, see what he can do. I can also try the office of the vice president. They might say more, so we'll just keep hammering him for info. Foreign Policy Advisor 2 says, well, I don't know if he has, but I can ask. It would be also good to try the office of the vice president and anyone in the intelligence community. Okay, so just go get info. Julianne for Hillary says, okay, left messages for the office of the vice president, but Politico just sent me a push notification stating that they are indeed investigating. Okay, so Politico's reporting this. Okay, 7/25/16. FBI just put out our statement, setting context, or maybe a statement. Thanks. Now, the office's best assessment, writes Durham, is that the July 25 and 27 emails that purport to be from Bernardo were ultimately a composite of several emails that were obtained through Russian intelligence hacking of the US-based think tanks, including the Open Society Foundations, the Carnegie Endowment, and others. Now, indeed, as discussed above, language from Tim Maher's email is identical to the language in Bernardo's, so it might be a mashup. Furthermore, given Smith's extensive contacts in the think tank community, her public role as a foreign policy advisor for the Hillary campaign, and her communication with think tank colleagues about Trump, it is a logical deduction that the something that Smith was, at minimum, playing a role in the Clinton campaign's efforts to tie Trump to Russia. In fact, Smith's July 27th email, Julianne's, to her think tank colleagues about Trump, Russia, and NATO the day after candidate Clinton allegedly approved the plan, certainly lends at least some credence that such a plan existed. Oof. Of course it did. John Durham. Moreover, Moreover, the text messages exchange between Julianne and the Foreign Policy Advisor 2 supports the notion the campaign might have wanted or expected FBI and other agencies to put more oil into the fire. And this was all buried in an annex. Here, the response by the FBI. Now, in the days and weeks following receipt of the sensitive info from T1, multiple high-ranking U.S. officials received reports and briefings conveying or summarizing, among other things, the intelligence concerning the purported plan by the Hillary campaign. Now, for instance, on August 3rd, during a meeting between the White House, Brennan, and the CIA director, they briefed Obama. They briefed Dementia Joe. Clapper was there. Comey was there. Other officials were there, August 3rd, about Russian interference efforts, as well as the T1 intelligence received that it came from Clinton. Okay, so T1, they knew about this? Oh my goodness. This is before the election, okay? August 3rd, 2016. During a meeting at the White House, the director of the CIA briefed Obama and everyone else about Russian interference as well as the Clinton plan. Brennan's handwritten notes stated, "We're getting additional insight into Russian activities that cite alleged approval by Hillary of a proposed plan from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming Russian interference by the Russian security services." This is insane. So, in other words, they're going to reverse the script on this. They're going to say that this is all true, even though in August, they think Hillary's going to win, right? They don't think this is a big deal. First of all, they're like, so what if she's doing this? We should vilify Trump. Hillary's going to win. It's like 92%. And then they flip it out. So they had this intelligence that it was a Hillary operation. Obama knew it was a Hillary operation on August 3rd. And they ran with it anyways. And Obama ordered follow-up on it to tie Trump to Russia. I mean, I think this is as clean as indicia as you could have. Obama can call back and say he's got plausible deniability. Well, I thought the intelligence changed and we got other things that came out and I had to change my opinion. I'm the president. They neglected to tell or include any conversations about this all originating from Hillary. He knew it. According to John Brennan's own notes, he wrote in handwriting that they were trying to vilify Trump, but they didn't care because they thought Hillary was going to win. It only mattered when she lost. In addition, as described in the unclassified report, on September 7th, the CIA sent the FBI an investigative referral memo that referred to, among other things, the Clinton plan. They knew, but they thought she'd win, so who cares? Moreover, in something 2017, more than a year after someone initially received the reports, the redacted, a whole paragraph. The CIA prepared a written assessment of the authenticity and the veracity of the above reference intelligence, and the CIA also stated that it did not assess that the above memo or blank something hacked U.S. communications to be the product of Russian fabrications, right? So that information that it's a Hillary plan is accurate. CIA found it. Now, approximately 4 years later, in September 2020, the DNI declassified certain information, and in a letter to Senator Lindsey Graham, the DNI declassified, among other things, they said, in late July 2016, U.S. intelligence agencies obtained insight into Russian intelligence analysis that alleged that Hillary had approved a plan to stir up a scandal against Trump by tying him to Russia and tying the Russians to the hacking of the DNC. Now, the intelligence community does not know the accuracy of this allegation or the extent to which Russian intelligence analysis may reflect exaggeration or fabrication. Now, the DNI also declassified a portion of former CIA Director John Brennan's handwritten notes that describe the meeting with Obama and the CIA referral memo that was sent to Director Comey at the FBI and Peter Strzok, the FBI lover who was texting, the married woman he was sleeping with, something about, "We will stop him." Now, the FBI provides a defensive briefing to Attorney General Lynch. So then they got to paper their file, right? On July 12th, FBI personnel, including Andy McCabe, and General Counsel Anderson, briefed Deputy Attorney General Yates and others about the T1 info, the Clinton plan. While the consensus among the group was that the information was not credible, the decision was ultimately made by Yates to brief Attorney General Lynch. Well, we should tell her anyways. Then on August 10th, 2016, somebody, after receiving the initial reports from T1, McCabe and Anderson provided a defensive briefing to Lynch. McCabe and Anderson gave Attorney General copies of the March reports to review, and for unknown reasons, Lynch was not shown the Bernardo emails describing the plan, never saw them, by the Clinton campaign. When interviewed by the office, Anderson stated that to the best of her recollection, she never saw the Bernardo emails either, but noted they would have been helpful for our interview. Well, it's because McCabe and Anderson didn't want to show it to her because they were helping in the cover-up, clearly. According to Anderson, Lynch denied knowing Renteria, the Clinton campaign official, but did not deny or comment on broader assertions or reports about efforts to improperly influence the department's investigations. According to McCabe, in in his interview with the Office of the Inspector General, she read something reports talking about probably Lynch, and I will probably never forget, she just finished reading them and said, okay, I mean, like, I expected more of a reaction than that. Like, I expected, like, well, this is crazy. I never talked to that person. But she was absolutely stone-faced. She said nothing about the content of the memos that, like, had her dead to rights, which I don't know how to interpret that. He's like, that's crazy. McCabe added that he thought the Attorney General's reaction to the substance of the reports, which was implicating her directly, was odd. And Anderson similarly told the OIG that she found it a little bit weird that the Attorney General did not affirmatively disavow the contents of the redacted reports, but we know what those reports are. Those reports are saying that Loretta Lynch was colluding with the Hillary people, and that she and Anderson had discussed the circumspect nature of her response. Like, isn't that weird? She just sat there. She probably looked guilty as hell. Okay, they're not going to say that, but she's probably like sweat. She's like, no, don't have anything to say. Got to get out of here. Calls her lawyer immediately. I'm in big trouble. Mark Elias, help me. And freaking out. And in an interview, Anderson described Loretta Lynch as being a little surprised at what she read. Yeah, providing what Anderson noted as a measured response. Anderson also stated that she was struck by the fact that the Attorney General pronounced the name Renteria in a peculiar fashion. You know, that's not how you say her name. Like, everybody knows her name. And she says, like, Amanda Renteria. No, that's not how you say it. It's Amanda Renteria. You know how to say it, Loretta. Additionally, Anderson recalled telling McCabe on the walk back to the FBI that the Attorney General's response to the reports was odd. Anderson based this assessment on the fact that she did not even seem visibly outraged about the accusation, nor did she, the Attorney General, denounce or object to the contents of the reports relating to her actions or her alleged contacts with the Clinton people. Now, the appendix to the OIG report includes a different reaction by the Attorney General. In the first instance, the Attorney General told the inspector that the FBI did not show her the reports. Oh man, that she was being asked to examine with the interviewers. Lynch believed that McCabe and Anderson showed her something more abbreviated and told her up front that she was being provided a defensive briefing concerning a collection of materials that were deemed not to have investigative value. She's like, well, they didn't show me. Did you read the report? No. Well, they said you did. Well, I don't think so. Well, what'd you read? Some small page of documents. I thought it was just like a summary of something. And you didn't want to see the report? Well, of course not. They said it was nothing. They said it has no investigative value. It's just the defensive briefing. We're just here to let you know. We're not doing anything with it. It's all over. So what am I supposed to do? She had the distinct impression that the reports were not credible. She thought they were fake. She's like, they're real. Now, furthermore, the FBI informed Lynch that there were no plans to investigate her or any reports that she was working with Renteria to influence the outcome of the mid-year investigation. The Attorney General told the OIG that she emphatically told McCabe and Anderson she never knew anybody named Amanda Renteria. No, never heard of her. And that the FBI was welcome to interview her and anyone you want. She also told the FBI there was no truth to the allegations in the report, and she had never communicated with anyone on the Clinton campaign about the mid-year investigation at all, except when she got on the airplane with Bill for a little while, you know. This plane's a rockin'. The office has also interviewed FBI General Counsel Baker, who Michael Sussman tried to feed with fake intel, to whom Anderson reported at the time of the defensive briefing. Now, Baker told the office that based on the reports he received, he was greatly concerned about Lynch's reaction. She's so guilty. She got busted. Moreover, Baker, unlike his FBI colleagues, did not dismiss the credibility of the reports. In fact, Baker informed the office that the following defensive briefing of Lynch, he began to have concerns about Lynch's bias due to her curious reaction to the information and her interaction with Bill Clinton. Ugh, gross. Yeah, James Baker, he said that he and other FBI executives had great concerns about this because they thought that maybe she was going to use her position to make sure Hillary Clinton was not prosecuted. Said the reaction upon learning of the allegations smelled bad, said James Baker. And somebody else said, somebody was explaining how bothered he personally was with her response of thank you after being briefed about her alleged exchange of information. Okay, so one person was like, I can't believe that she did that. She just sat there and said thank you after all of these allegations. She's guilty. They were freaking out probably. It's like, I can't believe my boss is actually doing that. Wild. Reported the interview of James Baker saying he also believed the reports should not have been dismissed out of hand. On the tarmac in Phoenix, yeah, Bill Clinton, remember? The interaction with Bill Clinton landed in Phoenix on a tarmac and Loretta Lynch went and got on the airplane. And then Hillary Clinton didn't get indicted. I don't know. I'm just saying. They were on there for a while. Now, guidance to direct enough time. There was enough time, you know, okay? It wasn't like 30 seconds. Anyways, the Director Comey says also, and guidance to Director Comey that the Clinton email investigation should be referred to as a matter, okay? Let's not call it an investigation. Let's just call it a Clinton matter. You know, that's all. That'll be good. In any event, on August 12th, following the defensive briefing of Lynch, Anderson drafted a memo summarizing communications between the FBI and the department outlining the steps that we took to communicate the reports that were collected from T1. Now, as discussed above in that memo, Anderson outlined 4 reasons why the FBI said, well, this is ridiculous. First of all, it's hearsay. Second, someone probably exaggerated it. And third, third, someone else who copied it have exaggerated it, and it's probably a bad translation too. So we just don't need to worry about it and just not really do anything. So fourth, it was the translation. Now, the FBI's assessment of the report conflicts with the CIA, which noted above assessed the information not to be a Russian fabrication. CIA says it's good. FBI doesn't do anything with it. Now, Comey subsequently testified before Congress that the sensitive intelligence was among the reasons he decided to announce the conclusion of the FBI's investigation of Clinton's private email server without the participation or awareness of the Attorney General or the department. According to Comey, although he believed the assertions in the memo concerning Lynch's behavior were not consistent with his own interactions, he was concerned that if the information leaked, it could undermine the public's perception of her impartiality. Well, if they know she's corrupt, then we're all screwed. So in short, neither the office nor somebody have been able to determine definitively whether the purported Clinton campaign plan, something, was entirely genuine, partially true, a composite pulled from multiple sources, exaggerated in certain respects, or fabricated in its entirety. Give me a break. It was entirely genuine, from Michael Steele all the way up to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and the rest of them. Nonetheless, the late July 2016 Sensitive Intelligence, which is a senior intelligence official, described all of this as really concerning, and it made its way up to CIA headquarters. Director Brennan appears similarly to have recognized the significance of this information, and he briefed everybody about it. He briefed the president, the VP, the AG, everybody, and they did nothing with it. Nothing. Moreover, in early September, the CIA prepared a referral memo on the information regarding the purported plan that went to the FBI. CIA knew about it too. And the information was included in an intelligence note prepared in September related to Russian election interference. In other words, the Russians were being exaggerated by Hillary, making something that is nothing into something. Thus, the record reflects that the FBI was fully alerted to the possibility that at least some of the information it was receiving about the Trump campaign might have come from Hillary, or that it was the product of Russian disinfo. Either way, despite this awareness, the FBI dismissed it. Dismissed the T1 information, not credible, without any investigative steps actually have being taken to either corroborate or disprove the allegations. It's a cover-up, okay? They were covering it up. They knew Hillary Clinton was doing this, and they just made up a justification. Hearsay, exaggerations, ×2, bad translations. This is a cover-up. Now, they also talk about the threat of foreign election by foreign government number 2. Now, as noted in the public report in November 2014, the FBI received information from a longtime CHS, confidential human source, operated by Field Office 1. The FBI also received corroborating information from 2 separate authorized foreign intelligence surveillances that redacted. Although redacted, it was widely believed that redacted. One person directly tasked by the leader of the foreign government too, which I wonder who that was, with helping to facilitate his plan resided overseas at that time, but had indicated they were going to fly to the United States. Field Office 1 sought FISA coverage of non-US person 1 almost immediately to get access to the email accounts before they got here. Now, although Field Office 1 attempted to obtain expedited approval of FISA, it waited in limbo for a while, for approximately 4 months. And according to another agent, the application lingered because everyone was super more careful and scared with a big name involved, okay? Man, this FBI, they get this foreign source, it's gonna involve Hillary. They wanna tap that phone, no one wants to tap it. They were pretty tippy-toey around HRC because there was a chance she would be the next president, and they didn't want to go and spy on her, they just want to spy on Trump. Similarly, Field Office 1 Special Agent, SAC, told investigators that when she spoke with the counterintelligence director, they alluded to the fact that they did not want a presidential candidate on tape, even though the field agent believed it was a very remote possibility. Like, she doesn't even talk to that person, but she might talk to that person, so if they tap that phone, she might get on there. According to the records the office reviewed, it appears that the delay also may have been partially attributable to a decision to await the confirmation of the incoming Attorney General. Now, although non-US person 1's travel to the United States was postponed, the department eventually decided it would authorize FISA, but only after there was a commitment that Clinton and others who were being targeted by foreign government 2 would get defensive briefings. So then Hillary knows, don't talk to that person, okay? Don't talk to that person on the phone. As noted in a public report, those briefings were given, but it took 11 months from the time of the receipt of the original allegations to make the briefing. Now, we've got a big fat redacted paragraph here under the section about Carter Page's FISA warrants. As set out in the unclassified report, the leadership of the FBI directed that Page not be interviewed at the time that he sent a letter to Comey volunteering to be interviewed, and in fact, no interview of Page was approved by Comey until March 17. Page then voluntarily had not 1, but 5 interviews. The relevant FBI interview interview document, the 302 interview reports do not indicate that Page was ever asked about the above referenced email sent to the campaign in July. So this looks like it's an email. And the FBI's reasoning for not asking is unclear. Put another way, despite the fact that the email, the FBI's assessment of its import, were included in the 3 of the 4 his FISA applications, 2 of which were submitted to the FISA court after the FBI had already interviewed Page. So they needed to go spy on him after he was talking to them. On November 2017, in that date, however, Page's email to campaign officials was explored by Adam Pencilneck censured Schiff during Page's testimony before the House Select Committee on Intelligence. In his testimony, Page confirmed to censored Schiff that he had sent the email in question, which led to Schiff asking the following. Dr. Page, Mr. Steele in the dossier, which was fake from Schiff, makes reference to a meeting that you had with a representative of the presidential administration. Did you meet with any representatives of the presidential administration while you were in Moscow in July of last year? Well, just that brief greeting I mentioned. So the only person you met, says Shifty, you only met with a single person from the presidential administration, and that was Dvorkovich? Yes, sir. Again, being very careful of the distinction between met and meeting. Yes. Okay, so on July 8th, says Pencil, you wrote in an email to the campaign that you had incredible insights and outreach that you received from Russian legislators and members in plural of the presidential administration. Page says, hey, Pencilneck, though there has been, again, great feedback and positive feelings were expressed in public forums, and just reading the newspaper in Russian, there was hope for the future. Later, Schiff inquired as follows, saying, Mr. Schiff writes, Dr. Page, I'm referring to Bait Stamp Redacted, in which you relate that you had received insights and outreach from Russian legislators and senior members of the presidential administration. What members of the administration did you meet? No meetings, Pencil. You know, it's insights versus outreach. The insights were primarily based on the materials or the ideas that I read in the press, similar to my listening to President Trump in the various speeches that I heard of his. Finally, Schiff ended by stating, Mr. Schiff said the following, and what you have related privately to the Trump campaign, that you met with the Russians, you did that? He says, I do not see the word meeting anywhere. I never met with him, Congressman Schiff. Again, outreach is available. Incredible insights were provided. Now, Page was correct in his assertion. His email did not mention any meetings, but Adam Pencilneck Schiff didn't care. Now, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report also discussed this email about Page's trip. The report described Page's testimony regarding the email, noting that he had difficulty recalling the alleged high-level engagements referenced in it. Page also testified about the incredible insights and outreach, met with academics, exchanged with academics over dinner, somebody worked for the Duma, Russian parliament, member, couldn't recall some other name, Dvorkovich, new economic school commencement ceremony. I was there at a dinner. Page also told the committee that the unnamed staffer and Dvorkovich were the only 2 people that he directly interacted with while in Russia. And so his testimony was consistent with his public statements that he made with confidential human sources and statements made to the FBI. But the FBI yet assessed in both April and June FISA renewal applications that the email that he sent was evidence that he met with Russian government officials. They didn't care. Like, what is this email about? He's like, I told you, it's all this. And they say he's meeting with the Russians and the presidential administration and Seekin and Devikin, filing false documents with the FISA courts that they know is false. At a minimum, the various statements of Page, including most particularly the recorded statement, it should have brought the attention of the OI and the FISA court in a more fulsome way to say, you don't deserve a warrant for this guy because he's not doing anything wrong. Relatedly, as noted in the unclassified portion of the report, nobody was informed that the source stated that Page had told the source that Page had met with Seekin during a post-election trip to Russia. This assertion was untrue. Our investigators established by reviews of the recording that he had made of the meeting and the transcript of the meeting that was prepared months later by the FBI. Thus, the Crossfire Hurricane investigators reviewed the recording and failed to report the erroneous reporting, or they didn't review it at all. In either case, the court was not apprised of any information that could have cast doubt on the reliability of the information that justified the warrant. In addition, no one was apprised of the doubts of some of the Crossfire Hurricane investigators about the source's claims, or the possibility that Seekin would have no interest in meeting with Page at that time. Bunch more redacted here. And here's a link exchange between a case agent and analyst at the FBI. This is their little text messaging server. Here's another one. CHS reached out to me today. Remember that Page told CHS that he met with Seekin this past trip? Supervisor said, come on, he met with Seekin? Yep. Said CHS just remembered it yesterday after reading Seekin's name in the paper. Says, okay, well, we need that audio then. I mean, if it's a source, he's got the audio, right? Analyst, man, yeah. I just don't get him referring to Page or Cohen at all, man. It's like they're living in a dream world. That would be pretty interesting if he really did meet with him. What possible reason would Seekin have to meet with him now? It serves no benefit to him. I really believe he exaggerates his meetings. Okay, this source. He just makes crap up. He may have been in a meeting where he was one of 200 people or something. Like he was in the room room. Okay, whatever. Redacted and redacted. And the application also summarized, so some more warrant stuff, a June 2017 interview of Klementov conducted by Mueller's investigators. In that interview, Klementov stated he was familiar with Page's visit to Moscow when Page spoke at a school, new economic school, but noted that it was unlikely that Page met with Seekin during the visit. But they still got warrants anyways because they just wanted to spy on Trump. The final renewal application, however, discounted his supposition that Page did not meet with Seekin. Didn't tell the judges because they're liars. In particular, the application explained that Klementov may not have known about all of Page's meetings. And the final sentence is redacted. So that's what we've got from the classified Annex. And we need to see some indictments. We saw pure evidence of Obama being briefed that Hillary was behind all of this stuff by John Brennan himself. The FBI came up with excuses not to investigate that to protect her. Loretta Lynch was caught red-handed, busted by the FBI, who then ignored it all and continued to provide briefings to the president that went the opposite of the truth. And they actually forgot about all of Hillary's stuff, never mentioned any of that to any of us, and instead created a fake hoax that to this day may have caused such a cascading effect. I mean, this whole Russia-Ukraine war might have started from this, okay? And through the domino effect, cascaded into the animosity against Russia because of a seeded anti-Russian propaganda piece that led half the Democratic Party, if not the whole Democratic Party, to think the Russians hacked our election and gave it to Trump. He was illegitimate for 4 years. Many of them thought that, still think that to this day. And that this second term is also illegitimate because of that first illegitimacy, and has justified maybe all the Democrat love for Ukraine, to stop Russia, right? Zelensky, hundreds of billions of dollars, all of the things that Joe Biden did against the Russians, seeded because of this narrative, right? They're in alignment with their final operation to try to stop Trump. Now, Trump won, they attacked him, and he won again, and now this stuff is coming out. But if there are not prosecutions or indictments as a result of this, then I don't think we have ultimate control of our country, because they got away with this up until this point, abusing their offices, and Obama knew exactly what he was doing. He was briefed before, changed the strategy after Hillary lost, and constructed a coup, and they better be indicted.